day, everybody. Welcome back here to the library. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe because we've got great content coming at you every Sunday here on the channel. And of course, this week we have our next episode of 1,000 Words or Less, show where I sit down and talk with other authors and other creative types, and they share with us their work and talk about it. Of course, the only catch is it has to be 1,000 words or less. And I'm really excited to introduce our guest this month because we're doing something a little different this month. We're going to be talking with cosplayer Katt G. Katt, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Brice. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, as I said, this is a little different from what we normally do because this is almost purely a visual medium. But this is something you're incredibly creative about. It's as creative as writing fiction and things like that. So I'm really excited to have you on here today.
I'm excited to be here. And I mean, I'm definitely passionate about writing as well. So, that's big part of what I do here.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be getting into. Before we go really any further, Katt, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
A little about myself. Well, you said we are talking about, I am a cosplayer. We'll be talking about cosplay today. And whereas, most cosplayers are known for recreating characters that already exist, another big part of cosplay is creating original characters, which is what we're going to be talking about. One of my personal favorites today. But as a cosplayer, of course, I can be found on multiple platforms, one being Kitty Cat Giggles cosplay on Instagram and kittycatgiggles.cos on TikTok. That is cat spelled with a K and 2 T's.
And we are going to have links for that in the description underneath the video. So if you like what you hear today, and I really think you will, please follow these links and follow her because she is creative and fantastic. All right. Well, today, as she said, she's going to be sharing with us one of her original characters, a Hogwarts professor named Archibald Thomas Finnick, who, of course, if you have read all the works in the world of Hogwarts, you will know does not exist in any of those volumes. So, Katt, tell us a little bit about, before you read his biography, because that's what she's going to read for us first, and we're going to watch a little bit of video of him. What can you tell us about Mr. Finnick, or Archie, as you like to call him? What do we need to know about him?
Just that you're going to love him. He is one of my, I think, most lovable characters for sure. Everyone who's I've ever introduced to, ever watched his videos and be like, okay, I'm obsessed with him. I want to know more about him. But I don't want to say too much because I do say a lot about him in his bio.
Well, then let's not waste any more time. As I said to y'all folks, Katt's going to read the bio, and then we're also going to watch a short little intro video for him. And then we'll come back and keep talking. So, Katt, take away with Archibald Thomas Finnick.
You got it. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is an institution known for not only top-tier magical curriculum, but also it's nothing short of inimitable staff. Some of the greatest witches and wizards of the modern age can boast the inclusion of the school on their resumes. The youngest and newest member of the team, currently found there with his square frame glasses, perpetually messy silver and black hair, sarcastic glint in his eye, and a handsome jawline, is Archibald Thomas Finnick, Professor of Magical Studies and Theory. For those of you familiar with the adventures of a certain chosen one who attended Hogwarts in the 90s, you may be thinking, what in Merlin's beard is that subject? This is perfectly understandable reaction, as the subject was not introduced as a part of the curriculum until about the 2010s, long after Mr. Potter's time at the castle and after the ultimate defeat of He Who Must Not Be Named. The course itself is a study of the amalgamation of magic, spells, charms, potions, divination, etc., and, for lack of a better term, Muggle sciences. It is essentially an exploration of how magic actually works. You may be thinking, get your math out of my magic. However, Professor Finnick, or Archie as his coworkers so affectionately refer to him, teaches the subject with such vigor and passion that his students cannot help but fall in love with it themselves. His intense love of the subject aside, Archie is the perfect person to bring in such a new concept to the world of magical education. He himself is a bringing together of two things that are typically not associated. The professor is a Hogwarts alumnus of Slytherin House who is, get this, half-blooded. His father is a Muggle and a chemist. His mother's a witch and magical fiction novelist. Though it's not completely unheard of, see Severus Snape, it is still considered of the more rare occurrences in house placement. This unconventional mix brings us quite the unconventional character, but some things do not come as a surprise. In line with his house's stereotypes, he is highly ambitious in his lesson planning, possesses a great drive for success and perfection, and can be described as more than a little short-tempered. He demands the same drive and hard work from his students as he puts into teaching them. This pushiness, despite how harsh it may seem to his kids, comes from a place of caring and more than a little pride. Due to the intensity of his course, only students in their 6th or 7th year may sign up to take it. This absolute sass master, however, is quickly earned the position as several upperclassmen's favorite teacher due to his quick wit and inability to hold back his true feelings. It also helps that he's been trained in and has mastered the art of dueling and runs the newly revived Hogwarts Dueling Club. Overall, Archie appears to have everything together in his life, but no overachiever is without his flaws. Despite being incredibly sure of himself when it comes to his classroom or talking science, the man is exceptionally awkward around witches. Some find it to be endearing and kind of cute, but it is one of the aspects of his personality that Archie absolutely despises. After all, there is a certain professor that he would love to get to know better if he could stop tripping over his own feet every time she says good morning to him. His awkwardness is definitely not the only part of his life he would rather keep secret. His aforementioned mother is a reformed Death Eater. She got involved when she was much too young to fully understand the depth of her actions, not unlike a certain Regulus Black. Due to her involvement and escape from that world, she has a curse upon her that will forever affect her bloodline. His mother has done her best to hide this from him growing up, but as a teenager, he overheard her speaking with Professor Dumbledore about possible issues with her son that may arise. Therefore, Archie has a darkness that lingers about him that he himself does not fully understand. All he knows is that there are voices in his head that have become clearer as he grows older. His obsession with perfection, however, causes him to force them down and hide them from his students and from other staff members. Dark, mysterious curses aside, this cat-loving, eye-rolling tea enthusiast secretly has a heart of gold underneath an apparent icy, thick layer. He takes immense pride in his job and is more than thrilled to have his dream job working for Headmistress McGonagall. Oh, one last thing. If you give him a few glasses of fire whiskey down at Hogsmeade, he does a killer Celestia Warbeck impersonation. All in all, love him or hate him, Archibald Finnick is one professor who is not easily forgotten.
That sounds fantastic. And as I said, look, we got a short video here. So let's watch this video and then we'll come back and talk more. Well, that was wonderful. And for those of y'all who already have fallen in love with Archie, as you should have done after that, there is, Katt told me right before the interview, she has got a playlist on her TikTok channel just with nothing but Archie. So if you've already fallen in love with him like you should have, make sure you follow the link up in the description so you can go check that out. Now, I have, looked at several different of your cosplays, and you are a shapeshifter. There are characters that you have played that are other people's and your own, and you look nothing like yourself. So I guess that obviously takes talent. So how did you get into cosplay, and how did you develop your talent for cosplay over the years?
Well, we start by saying I have been doing this for, how old am I now? 31. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've always been, here's a shocker to you, an extravagant, like kind of out there, over the top kind of person. And, but I didn't, I can tell, but I didn't discover like because, being an ancient being that I am, back in high school and whatnot, for me, the internet was a baby thing. It was brand new. Like I didn't know that the world of cosplay was even like a thing. Like I've always liked to dress up. But then when I got to college, I remember I went to my first ever like pop culture convention.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is a whole thing. People do this. People spend time, effort, energy, put money into this. They build armor, they sew stuff, they make up wigs, all that just for fun. And I was like, I want in on that. So I started with, I think my first ever cosplay was just, it was so bad. I don't even think I have photos of it, but it was just me throwing together clothes from my closet. I bought like a really cheap wig and I went to the con and I was just like, I want to build on this. And then I think it was the next year I sewed my first dress to wear to a convention, and that there was just such a sense of pride about it. I was like, I want to learn how to do everything. And I'm one of those people, I love picking up skills to this day. I'm just like, I want to learn how to do that. I only started building armor, I think like 3 years ago, but I've been cosplaying for 12 years because I was just like, you know what? I want to start doing that. That looks like fun. And now recently I've been getting into 3D printing, which is a lot of fun.
That's a game changer right there.
Yes. It makes things, well, I don't want to say easier because it depends on what I'm building. Some cases I prefer foam and clay and all that kind of stuff. But that's what got me into it, was just, it looks like a lot of fun. And I was just like, I want to do this. This looks amazing. And I love the challenge of it. Even now, I pick up characters. I'm like, I want to see if I can do that. Can I make a convincing scar on my face? Can I, convincingly age myself or make myself look like a man or those kind of things too. So it was fun. And I wanted to get involved more with that. And here's another thing. It should always be fun. I know that there are some folks out there that it becomes kind of a competition and they're like, oh, well, so-and-so is better. Who cares? Are you having a good time? That's what you should be doing.
And and so you said you're interested in the literary arts as well, and of course, you full well know that I'm an author, and that whole, why did I start doing it? It's because it was fun. And I still have stuff I wrote from in high school that I will never publish because it's just not worth publishing. But it was fun, and we start there. That's a common part of the creative process. So all my viewers out there who watch this, you are not alone in the beginning struggles of creativity. It takes a long time to get any good at it, but if it's fun, then you won't notice that you were horrible at it to start with until you get good at it and you go, wow, I was not as good as I thought I was.
I have stuff from like even a year ago that I hate, and don't hate it, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do that so much better now. Or what's funny to me is, like you said, maybe some newer cosplayers or people who want to try it and they're intimidated by, you see someone like, I'm not gonna say I'm great, but I've been doing this for 12 years and you're like, oh, well, I never know how to contour makeup like you. I'm like, you should see my first contour like attempt. It was awful. It was terrifying. But as I may make some things look easy, but it's only because I've been doing them for so long.
Right.
That I can just, I'm like, okay, I know how to do this. I know how to like throw all this together. But I guess the greatest piece of advice I can give to anyone who wants to start is just start. Just do it. And it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to plug my own video here on the channel, folks, if you haven't watched the Writer's Desk videos yet, the very first episode says, what's the hardest, the very first piece of advice is, what's the hardest part about writing? Starting and finishing. So you got to have the, take the dive to start and you'll have a lot of fun, and then you just got to stick with it. But if you're having fun along the way, that gets easier to do. So let's get to talking a little bit more about Archie himself, though, because this is who you brought in to share with us. So what led, what was your motivation, or what led you into creating Archie in the first place?
Well, I've been obsessed with Harry Potter since I was 9 years old. So it all began in 1999. So, but again, not gonna lie. Part of it had to do with being stuck indoors after a certain panorama that was happening last year.
What? I can't imagine what you were talking about.
Mostly it was, again, a lot of things like conventions and stuff were being canceled. So, but I still wanted my creative outlet. I still want to keep creating things because he's a fairly new character. I say that because, you know, again, I started cosplaying him in like April 2020, like roughly around that time. And again, getting that creative outlet. And I think someone else had created a Hogwarts Professor online. And I was like, that looks like a lot, or a Hogwarts like OC. And I'm like, you know, it'd be a lot of fun to just create like a professor. And mostly because what you think of when you think of professors at Hogwarts, well, for me anyway, is all of these like older witches and wizards. And I was like, I want something.
One of them is literally dead.
Yes. You know what I mean, though. It's a lot of like older characters. Yeah. And, you know, and I guess I just like the idea of what about fresh out of school, young professor, you know, who is there? What would his take be on it? What would he be like at the school? You know, he's just in like within his first like 4 or 5 years of the school. Yeah. How is he reacting? He's not like been there for a billion years like the rest of them.
Right. And that shows in the subject matter you chose for him to be a teacher of. You created your own subject. Why that subject?
Because nothing else felt right. And again, I wanted him to kind of stand out. Like I wanted him to be different. And it's like, why not? You know, he'd essentially be a millennial. Like he'd be, because I have him, you know, I said this subject was introduced in like the mid 2010s, which would have him, you know, being in his probably mid 30s, roughly, probably about Harry's age on the timeline. And, you know, again, maybe he's interested in, you know, people of that age in the wizarding world are kind of more interested in eliminating this idea of hierarchy, magical to muggle type thing, you know? So he's like, why not bring those worlds together? Especially, you know, him being a, you know, half-blood himself, who was raised by a chemist. So he's just like, okay, magic, but also math. And how do those work together? So that's what he explores, is like, how does it actually work? Like it's because there is something behind magic, you know, they have to actually focus, they have to learn how to use it. Right. So what is it that makes it work? And I thought that would be an interesting thing. But I like the idea of it also being one of those upper level courses that it's like, it's hard. It's not easy. You got to like really want to study it. This opens up a new.
This is Wizarding World Calculus.
Yes. He's basically the epitome of like wizarding millennial. This idea of like, I want to do things differently. You know, I want to like start things. He would probably have a Kickstarter like or something. I don't know. Something along those lines. But I just thought the idea of someone around my age, their take on the wizarding world, what it's like, and someone who's grown up in it, but how they're like, I don't want to just do this because this is tradition. Let's bring other stuff in too.
And I think it's inevitable that we touch on this next subject, kind of related to that, is you know, you mentioned and I commented on there, we both have been in love with the world of Harry Potter since we were in middle school.
Obsessed.
And
really.
Yeah, and I mean, y'all can't see it at home because the tie's too low, but this is my Hufflepuff tie. So
and
you know,
I have Slytherin memorabilia all over my house. So yes.
Yeah, and you literally have minted not one but 2 OC Hogwarts world characters, who we can plug in a second. But obviously, for fans like us, we've had to deal with some controversy in our fictional world with J.K. Rowling, who's the author, brilliant writer, very creative. She sucked us all into this world and has kept us there. But over the last handful of years, going back maybe further than that, but it's maybe intensified in the last handful of years, she has made some comments that you and I and many others who are Hogwarts fans think are somewhat antithetical to the values we picked up from reading the books, with some particularly anti-trans comments here and there. And so I have to deal with that myself, but since you're projecting an original character into her universe that she created, how do you deal with that?
For me, because I do know people my age who have, and it hurts me, have abandoned the series.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not that many, to tell you the truth. And I'll tell you why I think it's not that many, because I feel like the wizarding world has almost grown beyond its creator.
Mhm.
It has developed a life of its own. Like, it has become something so special to us that despite the person who created it, the lessons and the things that we took from it are so much more. I do honestly believe that this particular series, because of how huge it was in the late 90s and early 2000s and how much it affected people our ages like life,
Mhm.
it really taught a lot of, this might be a bit presumptuous to say, but it taught a lot of people how to be empathetic.
Yeah.
How to love people who are different from you, how to be like, it's okay to be different. It's okay. You know, you may feel like you're on this outside, but that's just because you're part of something greater. And it's just, I'm glad you brought up, it's like, oh, these were values that were put into us.
Mhm.
And for her to come out and say those things just really hurt.
Mhm.
It was a blow, because that was somebody who we always thought was like really understood us, you know, really pushed this idea of like, oh, being different is cool. And then for her to say those things was just like, wow, slap in the face. Thanks a lot.
And it really wasn't, you know, and I tried to, and, you know, read about why she's gone into, you know, and you can see different life experiences lead to different conclusions, but at the same time, it still just seems like a gulf that's wider than than the internet between, it's wider than the internet from what she's told us
It also
in her fiction.
I'm sorry. It also seems like she would be somebody who would be a perfect ally for this particular group, because, you know, you have characters in the Harry Potter universe. Yes, who fit so well, who could, you know, easily be like, oh, I don't conform to this. Like, I can be this and I can be that and I can be whoever I want to be. And I don't know, it just hurt, because it's like, again, you know, that several people who grew up, you know, like I have friends who are trans who grew up reading it, who fell in love with it. And that really, really hurt them, because they're like, I love these characters because I felt like them, because I saw myself in them. And for the person to create them to have said such horrible things is painful. Like, and it's hard.
Yeah. And I kind of lean on it. It's an idea. And we talked a little bit before the show about it, and the idea the author is dead.
Yes.
Once the book is out there, once it's being consumed and talked about between readers, it's now really the reader's work more than it is the author's work. I mean, in a much more benign instance, Star Wars fans, we do this with George Lucas all the time. Han Solo shot first. I don't care what George Lucas did to Star Wars: New Hope. We, the fandom, know Han shot first. That's a much more benign instance, but especially in the age of the internet, it kind of is more important now, because authors are so tempted to go back behind themselves and give caveats and, well, what I really meant was, and but
which that's
I agree,
a whole other thing. Sorry, that's a whole other thing we could talk about with J.K. Rowling, about the whole like retcon thing. It's just like, okay, just let it go. Like, that's become like a meme at this point. It's like, just stop going back and saying, oh, well, actually, this actually is like, stop, just stop. We're done. But I will say this. I do have friends who have said that I consumed the Harry Potter media, but they're now refusing to consume anything moving forward, and that they don't want to support her anymore. But I will say I'm still a huge fan of Fantastic Beasts. I think they're doing a great job there.
I've been pretty happy with those two, especially the first one. The second one could have used a little bit more ironing out.
It felt like a bridge.
Right. We could sit there and go off for that for a long time. So, but before we get going, because to our final question I want to talk about, let's pause real quick. We do have another video about Archie. So if you haven't fallen in love with him enough yet, here's another video for Archie.
Watch them run. They will tear each other into pieces. Jesus Christ, this will be fun. Da 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 da.
Fantastic.
I don't know what possessed me to make that, but it just felt so right for him.
So so now, if you haven't figured out already, she is Harry Potter fan, just incredibly talented at cosplay, and she's going to work in pop culture references like Hamilton. What are you waiting for? You should have already hit the links in the description to this point. So I know we're running out of time of what we kind of set for ourselves. Of course, we could go on for eternity, but kind of the last thing I want to talk about, because obviously, especially with Archie, narrative plays a major role in how you create it, because you literally were creating them completely. But how much does narrative, whether existing or original, how much do you take that into account as you're creating your cosplays? And is there a different level between existing and original cosplay?
They're definitely different with existing and original. Existing characters, it's me obsessively staring at a character's elbow in a Joanne, so I'm trying to find the right fabric for it, because I'm trying to create someone else's vision, which is cool, because it's like, oh, I want to attempt as more of a tribute. It's like, I love this other person's creation, I want to become this character. Whereas original characters, they're fun because it's like I can do whatever I want with them. But then someone like Archie is a different brand altogether, because he's an original character, but he exists in somebody else's world. So that there are things to be taken into consideration. Like, I include characters that we already know, like he would have been there in the 90s. So, Dumbledore would have been his like headmaster, and he would work for McGonagall if he's there now. Like and there are other professors who would still be there. And that's part of the reason why I gave him a new subject too, because a lot of those are already established in that world. So he comes in, he's teaching something different, yada, yada. But I was saying, like I said, I have a lot of freedom with him, but also I want to like fit him into the world properly. And it also makes him more believable, I think, as a character. The more it shows that I have done my research, the more it shows that I know what's going on. I can really flesh him out. And you talked about narrative, huge to me. As I said earlier, we were talking about earlier, I really, really love fleshing out my characters to the point that Archie has a middle name. His name is Thomas. I can tell you he likes cats. He does not like dogs. He is, like I said, in his mid-30s, roughly. He's the main character who, usually he's the one who, or I have a whole storyline, which we could go into forever, about him being in charge of detention of a bunch of kids that my other OC is actually in that detention, where they all become friends, like Breakfast Clubby type thing. I like because it makes them come to life so much more when you have a whole story around them. Like, where he's from, how he grew up, how he got there, how he ended up there. Was he good in school? Did he get in trouble in school? Does he have other characters that he interacts with? I create their whole world around them. And honestly, again, because it's fun.
Hey, and that is the best motivation to create anything. If you're not having fun with it, it doesn't matter if it's cosplaying, fiction writing, filmmaking, it's just not going to be the best you can do if you're not into it yourself, And
people can tell when you're not having fun too. Like they can read it on you. It's like, you're not enjoying yourself.
Oh yeah, no.
So I can even see it on my own face. Like every time I'm in Archie, I'm like, I just look like I'm having a blast because I am having a blast as him.
And and people think we might be making that up, but about we can tell, and hopefully they don't think that that we're making that, because as we're filming this, we're a week away from the U.S. premiere of James Bond, the last Daniel Craig James Bond movie. And if anyone's watched all the James Bond movies, you can tell that Sean Connery wanted nothing to do with his last movie, Diamonds Are Forever. It shows all over the movie, so we can tell when you're not invested in your own project. So, well, Katt, I know we've had a wonderful conversation here today, but we are kind of getting to the end of what we set for ourselves. But everybody, if you loved Archie and you are intrigued, as you should be, by this woman right here, please make sure you follow her on Instagram at Kitty Cat Giggles Cosplay, or at kittycatgiggles.cos on TikTok, where, by the way, there's a whole Archie playlist for you to check out. And as you have more fun with the your OC cosplayers and mixing them together, if you put any of it in YouTube, let us know, and we'll also promote it on the channel as well. So, Katt, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And so everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, check out Katt on both Instagram and TikTok. And everybody, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week on the channel and next month on 1,000 Words or Less.